The bishops who spoke in the debate said that public spaces in front of cathedrals were often an important place for people to gather to voice their views. I spoke to the Bishop of Bristol, the Rt Revd Vivienne Faull, just a moment ago, and this is what she had to say.
I contributed earlier on with some concerns about how certain sentences were being applied. But last Monday, there was a particular concern about the new restrictions which government was wanting to apply to the right to demonstrate. And many members of the House of Lords were very concerned about this for two reasons. Firstly, what had originally been put in the bill, which had all sorts of new restrictions, for instance, on the question of noise. And what was difficult about the noise issue was noise is part of the process of demonstration. And that was admitted and supported by members of the Conservative Party in the course of the debate. So that was the first concern about noise. But the second one was that the appropriate level of noise was to be decided by the police on the day. And of course, that was just too vague to allow for any sense of equity or justice in terms of planning for any demonstration. And I'm one of those who would both support people's right to demonstrate, but also the requirement to liaise with the statutory authorities. Is
there a concern then that the way in which the police would interpret that, you know, if they judge it to go above a certain threshold, for example, that could lead to trouble?
It was being left to the police, which leaves the relationship between those wanting to protest and the police potentially at least under pressure. And what's been really good in certainly what I've seen of the work of Avon and Somerset Police is how good they are at liaising with those demonstrations that have been properly organised. And this would cause suspicion, I'm absolutely certain, and therefore raise big concerns. Then there was another set of clauses for the measure that were put in really late and were not able to be properly debated either on Monday or previously. They were added to the bill at 11 o'clock at night, and there was just an hour to debate them with no warning. And those included all sorts of new provisions, including the risk that if you were carrying a bicycle lock, because you were going to lock your bicycle somewhere, you might be arrested on suspicion of going equipped to attach yourself to a building, locking on as it's called. And as a result of that, be told that you could, for the foreseeable future, not join another demonstration. So someone who was going to lock their bicycle might be arrested on suspicion. They'd never been on a demonstration, and they discovered that they would never be able to, or at least I think it's for the following year, wouldn't be able to go on a demonstration, which seemed to be an extraordinary thing to add to the law at this stage. Now, all of those new clauses were defeated and cannot be brought back to the House of Commons. The ones that were originally in the bill, for instance, around limitations on noise, can be brought back to the House of Commons, so we wait to see what the House of Commons does with those clauses. There was a really strong sense that government was particularly concerned by the demonstrations around climate change, Extinction Rebellion, and Insulate Britain. And in the back of their thinking was also some thinking about Black Lives Matter, I think. So real concerns for those of us who are wanting government action on climate change and are wanting greater justice for UK minority ethnic people. A real concern that those two issues would be pushed off the streets and that tensions would rise and that there would in the end be greater conflict in our society, greater, deeper divides than there are already. And I have to say that Bristol is a little bit of an outlier on this, because Bristol does tend to get out on the streets and people use their right to demonstrate, which is glorious mostly. Sometimes it's very destructive, but that doesn't mean that well-organised, well-planned demonstrations shouldn't continue, so that the Bristolians, who have led the way on issues around climate change and on racial justice, particularly at the moment, should be able to continue to, if you like, pioneer that on behalf of their own people, but I also believe on behalf of the nation.